Okay, today's lesson is on two-way relative frequency tables. Go ahead and copy this down. If you do not have the worksheet, it is fine. You can go ahead and copy this down anyways. It's not going to take you too long. Just go ahead and draw in those tables by hand, okay? So let's go ahead and jump into this. A frequency table is a table showing the placement of raw data. So it's literally you just plugging in numbers and not doing too much with it. So it's actually pretty relatively easy. The one I'm worried about is the relative frequency table. A relative frequency table is a table showing percentages of occurrences. So when they use the word relative here, then that means you're going to be doing percentages. So that's the first thing that's a little worrisome. The other part that's really important is that it's extremely important to know which total the calculations are being done from. Like, is what is it relative to? That's why they call it a relative frequency. And as we do the problems, I'll start pointing them out why it's a little bit different. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the first one. It says use the data to create a frequency table, and you notice that there's a blank table for you to set up. Um, and they kind of started labeling it for us. So on the left, they said these are the classes, and on the top, they put these are the favorite subjects. Here's where it gets a little bit weird. As far as the classes are concerned, if you take a look at the classes, there's really only two types of classes. There's class A and class B, and there's three different spots for it. So we'll explain why that is in a little bit. But for right now, just know that there is class A and class B, and we're going to leave that last spot blank. So that way you can kind of see where this is coming from, okay? Same kind of concept here. As far as the same favorite subjects are concerned, there's four different spots open, but there's only three different types of classes available, okay? So let me go ahead and write these down. So the different classes that are available are, as far as the favorite subject is concerned, is algebra, English, and history. And again, we have that extra spot on the side, and we'll talk about what that extra spot is for. All right, this first part's going to be pretty easy. On this box right here, notice that this box is a cross section between that are algebra and have class A. So I'm going to look for all the ones that have algebra and that have class A. So every time I see that, I'm going to go ahead and mark it. So for example, the first one has algebra and is coming from class A, so I'm going to mark it with a dot. This is class A, but it's not algebra, so I'm not going to mark that one. Definitely not this one. Definitely not this one. This one's algebra, but class B. So again, that doesn't count. So I'm looking only for the ones that have algebra and class A. That would be this one. On the other side, I think that's it, huh? There's only two. Yeah. So over here, there were only two that had algebra and class A. Let's keep going. This time I'm going to look for the cross section here. The cross section here would be B and algebra. So algebra from class B. I'm going to mark it a little bit different. I'm going to put circles on this one. So let's see. Algebra in class B, that would be this one. Algebra in class B, I see another one here, 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 and here. So if I were to count them all up, that looks like there are five of them. And we are done with that. Let's go ahead and move over to the next cross section. I don't see anything here. I'm going to leave that blank for right now. Let's go ahead and move over to this one. This is English and A. I'm going to use a different marking for this one. For English and A, I'm going to put a check mark. Let's see, English class A. That's here, 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 and here. Let me go ahead and count those up. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are English and class A. Sorry, I don't know why I zoomed out like that. iPad does funky things every once in a while. All right, let's do the next one. The next one would be English in Class B. So for English in Class B, I'm going to put a dash. Oh, I just realized I missed one, huh? I just realized I missed the very first one. What the heck is wrong with me? English in Class A. There's another one right there. So let me go ahead and erase that 5. You should probably were screaming at me through your computer like, hey, there's that one on the top. How did I miss it? All right, English in Class B. For English in Class B, I see this one. I'm gonna put a dash. English in Class B. That's it. And I'm running out of different ways of doing this. So let's see. Let's try to get creative. Let me go ahead and put a triangle for the next one. Triangle for, oh, sorry, I forgot to write that there's only one English in Class B. Triangle for history and Class A. History in Class A is right here and right here, so I only see two. And then I'm not going to mark anything on the history in Class B, so that's one, two, three, and it looks like that is it. Let me go ahead and just check one more time because that's different from what I got earlier. History in Class B. One, two, three. Ah, four. I knew I was missing one. Four. It's a good thing I double checked. So it looks like there are four that are history in Class B. Okay, four that did not get marked. All right, let me go ahead and add the, So when we do this, you notice that there was two algebra classes that were Class A and then two, five that algebra classes that were from Class B. How many algebra classes were there total? Well, if I wanted to find out how many algebra classes there were total, I would just add these up and I would get a number of seven. So this last box over here, I'm just going to write that this is the total. If I wanted to know how many English classes there were total, I would just add up the six from Class A and the six from Class B. Six plus one, that would be seven English classes total. If I wanted to find the history class total, I would write that there are six. Same thing over this way. Well, that tells me how many algebra, English, and history classes there were total. If I wanted to know how many I got from Class A, well, these guys are from Class A, these guys are from Class A, and these are also from Class A. So if I wanted to find the total of Class A's, I would add sideways. I would add 2 plus 6, which is 8, plus another 2 is 10. That means 10 of these students were coming from Class A. And then same thing over here. If I were to add these guys, or to find out what I got from Class B, I would add 5 plus 1 is 6, plus another 4 is 10. Now that leaves us with this blank box over here. What is this? This is the total number of students, like total number of students. I know 10 of them came from Class A and I know 10 of them came from Class B. If I were to add up those two, that means there were 20 students total who took this survey. Okay, and you could do the exact same thing going in the other direction. If you know that 7 of students are coming from algebra and 7 are coming from English and 6 are coming from history, if you add up this total, you should also end up with 20. That number should match going both ways because it's the same number of students in here. Okay. All right. So hopefully that made sense. That regular frequency table is super easy. You literally just count and substitute your values. Okay. The rest of the time, we're going to go ahead and practice relative frequency tables. Remember, relative frequency tables means you're setting up percentages according to the total. And I'm going to say total in quotation marks because that total kind of means different things for different problems. So let's take a look here. It says use the data to create a relative frequency table. They already gave me the frequency table. I want to make it into a relative frequency table. A relative frequency table is going to be based off percentages off your total. Now, if they give you a total, then we're going to be using the total. So what do I mean by that? In this case, I know exactly how many students there were that took this this survey, right? My total is coming from this box right here. I know that there were 64 students that participated in this survey, and that would be these 64 students right here. Okay, some of them are coming from love comedy from Class A. Some of them like drama from Class A. Some of them like horror from Class B. Okay, but if I add up all these students right here, it should add up to 64. All right. So I want to create a relative frequency. Well, if I'm going to do a relative frequency, I need to make a percentage. Here, this is telling me that out of all the students that took the survey, 20 of them loved comedy coming from Class A. But 20 out of how many? Well, 20 out of 64. So if I want to set up a percentage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 20 and divide it by 64 on my calculator. And I'm going to get a decimal, right? For today, we're going to go ahead and go change it into a percent. So 60 divided by 20 divided by 64 is 0.3125. And then we're going to move that decimal two places to the right. So that way I can change it to a percentage. And what I end up with is 31.25%. Guys, if the decimal goes too long, I want 2 extra decimals after the percentage sign, okay? So where did that 64 come from? Again, that 64 came from my total because this is relative to the total. All right, let's try the next one. Let's take a look at this one. If I wanted to find the relative frequency for this one, well, in this case, I know that the comedy loving people from class B, there were 18 of them. 18 out of how many? 18 out of 64. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that into my calculator. 18 divided by 64 is like 0.28125 something, something, something. And so I'm going to go ahead and just move that decimal 2 times to the right. It becomes 28. And I only want to go 2 decimal places. So that 25 actually rounds up to 13. So it's going to be 28.13%. All right, I'm going to do one more the long way, and then the rest I'm just going to go ahead and give you those numbers. How do I get this one? Well, this is going to be the drama students coming from class A, which I know that there's 8 of them, but it's 8 out of 64. 8 out of 64, I type that into my calculator. That one's actually nice. It's 0.125. And when I move the decimal 2 times to the right, that gives me 12.5%. All right. The next ones I'm not gonna do. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you what I'm doing, just to kind of go a little bit quicker on this. I'm gonna take 6 divided by 64, divide it, change it to a percentage, and if you did that correctly, you should end up with 9.38%. You really should be doing these in your calculator, making sure that you're getting the same numbers I am. Do not just copy this down and pretend everything's okay, because we caught a lot of errors when we were doing this in class. So make sure that you're calculating these with me. All right, so take a minute, go ahead and try to figure out what this one's gonna be. I'm gonna take the 3 divided by 64 on my calculator, go ahead and hit enter. And if you did it correctly, you should end up with 4.69%. Remember to move that decimal 2 times to the right and to round to the nearest hundredth. How do I get the next one? I'm gonna take this 9 and I'm gonna divide it by 64. 9 divided by 64, hit enter on your calculator. You should end up with 14.06%. And we're done with the hard calculations. Now for these next ones, you have options, okay? You can either, remember that this is the total. Well, I know that all I got to do is take these two and add them together on my calculator, and that will give me a total. Or I can take the 38 and also divide it by 64, and that'll also give me the total. Now, because we're rounding, your number might be off by just a little bit, but that's okay. You should be fine, okay? As long as your number is really, really close. So if I add these, I get 59.38%. If I add these, I should end up with 21.89%. If I add these, I should end up with 18.75%. Remember, to get the totals this way, well, you just add sideways going this way. Or you can also take the 31 and divide it by 64, and you should get either the exact same number or something really, really close. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you these numbers. This is 48.44% if you add them all up, and this is 51.56% if you add them all up. How do I get the total over here? Well, a couple of different ways. You can either take the 64 divided by 64 on your calculator, you're going to get 1. Take that 1, move the decimal 2 times to the right, and you should end up with 100%. Or we can also add up these two, and you should end up with 100%. Or you can add up these three, and you should end up to 100%. This is a really good check to see if you got your numbers right. Okay, you should be getting something like 100% or something extremely close to 100%. In fact, I believe this one, if you add them up, you don't get 100% exactly, but you get something like 100.02%, which is pretty darn close to 100%. Again, it's just a rounding issue. Okay. So yeah, so there's our relative frequency. Honestly, I'm not worried about this one. Relative frequency, when they give you a total, is pretty darn easy. Let's go ahead and go to the last one. This is going to be the harder one, and this is going to finish out our notes for today. All right, on this one, it says use the data to create two conditional relative frequencies. Let's go ahead and take a look at the information they gave me. They gave me a frequency chart or a frequency table. So I have all these values right here. This is great. Now, when I look over here, I want you to notice something when I'm trying to fill out this table, right? This table, I don't see a spot for the totals down here. And more importantly, I don't see a spot for the total either. So now the question becomes, well, if I don't know this number, right? If they're not asking me for this number, then what the heck do I do over here? Well, that means that our relative frequencies are going to be a little bit different. We are going to be going relative to this total, and we're going to be going relative to this total. So let's go ahead and show you what I mean by that. First of all, let's go ahead and highlight the fact that my totals are actually right here. And if they want me to focus on the totals right here, then that means I'm going to be doing this relative to these totals over here because there is no box for that 106. Okay, so how do I fill out this box here? Normally, if there was a box over here, I would say it's 12 out of 106 because that's my total, but I don't have my total. So I'm going to go relative to 60. This is the total I'm going to be using because that's the box I have, okay? So when I try to find this box here, how do I calculate this? Well, I'm going to take 12, but it's going to be 12 out of 60. So I'm only focusing on the students that are younger than 50. This is going to be relative to all the students that are younger than 50. I'm going to take that 12 and divide it by 60. 12 divided by 60, hit it on your calculator, you should get 0.2. Take that 0.2, move it 2 times to the right, you should end up with 20%. Now, I'm not going to do this one because, again, I'm only focusing on the students that are younger than 60 because my total would be 60 over here. So let me go ahead and do the pi one. The pi one is 8. 8 out of how many? 8 out of 60. I take 8 out of 60, divide on my calculator, I get 0.133333333. Move the decimal 2 times to the right, you get 13.333333. You round to the nearest hundredth, and you end up with 13.33%. Notice that the 3 does not round up because the next number was 5 or less. I'm sorry, less than 5. It was a 3. I'm going to do one more. I'm going to take this one, which is 19. I'm going to make it out of 60. In this case, when I calculate it, I get 0.316666666, and then your calculator gives up and says 7. We're going to move that decimal 2 times to the right. That's 31.666666. Go 2 decimal places, but since the next number is a 6, that 6 does round out, and it turns into a 7. So this is going to be 31.67%. Again, notice that all your relative frequencies are out of 60 because of this 60 right here. All right, the next one, I'm just going to go ahead and give you the number. In this case, you're going to get 21 out of 60, and 21 out of 60 is, sorry, the lights just went out on me. It's going to be, when I calculated, 35%. Okay, let's go ahead and look on to the next one. The next one, I got this box right here. When I do this box right here, I want you to notice that this time, I'm not going to do it at a 60 because that's not my total. Oh, I forgot to do this one. How do I get this one? I'm going to go ahead and take all these, add them up, or you should just take 60 and divide it by 60, which is going to give you 1, which is going to give you 100%. All right, let's go ahead and focus on this box now. This box, my total is no longer out of 60 because my total is over here. This time, my relative, I'm going to take all these totals and do my percentages relative to my new total, which my new total is 46. So instead of dividing by 60, now I'm going to be dividing by 46. So let's see. I'm going to take 46 divided by 60. Uh, whoa. That was way off. Sorry, I started looking at the wrong one. I am so sorry for that. Hey, I'm doing this one. I don't know where that came from. I'm taking 8 and dividing it by my new total, which is 46. 8 over 46. Hit enter, and you should end up with 17.39%. Take over to my next number. My next number is 17. Remember, my total is 46. 17 over 46. And I get, ooh, I got a different number. Let me go ahead and calculate that. Give me 1 second. 17 divided by 46, hit enter. You get 0.3695, and you're going to go ahead and round. So that's 36.96%. All right. Hopefully you understand what's going on. So 6 divided by 46, you hit enter on that. You should end up with 13.04%. And then for my last one, I'm going to take 15 divided by 46, hit enter. 15 divided by 46, you should get 32.61%. Couple of different ways you can do this last one. You can either take 46 divided by 46. You should end up with 100%. But honestly, guys, at this point, you really should be checking these, add them all up. And if you're not getting 100% or something really close, you know you did something wrong. In this case, we're just going to go ahead and say, yep, we did that one right. All right, so that takes care of my first frequency, relative frequency chart. Let's take a look at the next one. On the next one, and this is our last one, I want you to notice that the totals over here are gone. And this time, I still don't have a total. Nothing's missing. I think it's over here. What I do have is the totals down here. So now I'm not going to be focusing relative to this. I'm going to be focusing relative to the bottom. My totals are down here. So my relative frequencies are going to be based off the totals over here. So relative to the cake, this is 12 out of 20. If I want to do relative to the cake, this is going to be 12 out of 20. I hit enter on my calculator. That's going to be zero point 0.6. Move the decimal 2 times to the right. That's 60%. This 8, remember, we're going down this way because my totals are down here. So 8 out of 20 is what I'm going to write. And when I hit enter and move the decimal 2 times, I get 40%. If I want my total, I get 100%, which makes sense. Remember, you could have done 20 out of 20. But a better check is to add them up and make sure that they're adding up to 100. All right, for the pi, this is 8, but my total is no longer 20. My total is 25. So for this relative frequency relative to the pi, this is going to be 8 out of 25. 8 out of 25, you hit enter. You move the decimal 2 times to the right, you get 32%. To get the next one, this is going to be 17 out of 25. Divide it, move the decimal 2 times, you get 68%. To get my last one, I can either go 25 out of 25, or you can add up these two to check. 32 plus 68% is in fact 100%, so it looks like I'm doing this right. All right, I'm going to go a little bit faster. 19 out of 25 is what the next one should be. That gives me 76%. 6 out of 25. That gives me 24%. We add those two up, and I do get the 100%. And then for the last one for the cookies, this is going to be 21 out of 36, which gives me 58.333%. We'll just use 2 decimal places. And then the last one is going to be 15 out of 36, which gives me 41.67%. If you add them up, you should get that 100% again. Notice that all these were different, right? This was relative to the cake, which the cake total was 20. This one was relative to the cupcakes, and the cupcake total was 25. So yeah, these can be a little bit confusing, but hopefully now that we've gone over them, you have a better idea of how to calculate these. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.